example of water treatments. So the main objective of water treatment is to remove microbial pathogens and then the particles, big particles, because we don't really drink it. Our body cannot consume it. And then the high mineral contents, for example, calcium and magnesium. Unwanted chemicals. So these chemicals may come from factory. They produce a lot of toxic or poisonous chemicals. So we don't want this one in our body because it's poisonous. So we want to remove this one. And audio, maybe it's smelly. So we want to remove all these things before we drink the water. So these are the objectives of water treatment. Okay, so this slide talk about a comparison between the surface water and groundwater. So just now we mentioned that surface water and groundwater are the source of fresh water for us. So let's see. Surface water, it has high turbidity, and then that means it's not transparent. It's a bit muddy and brown color because of the dust, because of the mud. And then it has high microbial concentrations, and then it has a high dissolved oxygens. And then on the other hand, for groundwater, it has high concentration of minerals, which is good for our bodies. And then low microbial concentrations, low viruses, which is also good. However, there is the disadvantage about this groundwater is it has less dissolved oxygens. So these are the two differences between surface water and groundwater.
这个就是地表水与地下水的差别。
Hello? Yep. So for surface water, it has high turbidity because of the contaminations, the mud, the dust, okay? So it's cleaner if you consume the groundwater. But the disadvantage is because of the oxygen, less dissolved oxygen. So now we go to the next slide. So there are few methods to filter the water. The method number one is boiling. So what we need to do is we boil the water. We get the water, we boil it, and then we can kill all the bacteria and viruses by boiling. And this is the cheapest and safest way of water purifications. Okay, so every time whatever water filter we have done, we actually need to boil it before we drink the water. This is very important. It's the cheapest and safest and the most important steps in water filter. Okay. Oops. And the second method is filtrations. This is I think you're very familiar with this kind of filter. So you have rocks on the top, and then you have some sands, and then after that maybe you have what do you call that? Activated carbons, and then lastly you have a filter at the bottom, and then you put the dirty water at the top, and then when the dirty water goes through all the sand, the rocks and the activated carbons, it removes the particles, and then it absorb the contaminations, the chemical contaminations, and then after that it will get the clean water. So this is the function of this water filter. Yep. Okay, so just now we saw that water filter, right? So for sand and gravel, the main purpose of this is to remove solid particles, big size particles, okay? And then for charcoal, what it can do is it removes chemicals, for example, chlorines and some oil, some organic materials that you get it from the environments, either environments or factory. So it helps to remove this chemical, and it removes sediments, taste, and odor. So for example, you got a very brown color, like muddy kind of water. After you go through the activated charcoal, it can actually remove all this dirty, and the water become transparent. So the water become transparent because of, one of the reasons is because of the activated charcoal. So it can absorb and make it transparent. And then lastly, you have the coffee filter. So this coffee filter usually put at the bottom of the filter. It can remove all the large particles and prevents like the sands, maybe the sands or the charcoals that from the tops. So it can prevent it, and then you get a clean water. So actually what you need to do is, you might not get the clean water at the first time. So you have to do it like for 2-3 times before you get the clean water. Because of the sands or maybe the charcoals.
可以喝的水。
And then, okay, in the previous slide, actually, if you notice, we don't really remove the bacteria and the viruses with that water filter. So the last step for that water filter is that you need to boil the water. After you filter your water with that water filter, you need to boil it before you drink it. Okay, so remember that one. And then this is okay. And then this is method 3, distillations. So this is another method how we get the clean water from dirty water. So first of all, you put your dirty water or the muddy water in this flask, and then you heat it up. You heat up the water. So when the water got heat up, and then it can vaporize and become vapor when it meets the cold surface. So it evaporates, and then it condenses and becomes a clean water when it meets the cold surface, and then you get a clean water. So all the dirty mud particle, it will just stay here in these containers. So this is a distillation method. So you heat the dirty water, it gets vaporized, and then when it meets the cold surface, it condenses and become a clean water droplets, and then you direct the clean water droplets into a new bottle. So this is where you get the clean water. But these distillation methods, what you actually get is clean, pure water, which does not have any minerals in it. So you can drink this kind of water temporarily, but not for a long time, because it's not good for your body, because it has lack of minerals, which we actually need some mineral for our body to function properly.
这张是我们第3个方法，就是蒸馏。大家可以看左边的烧瓶。
Yep. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is method number 4. Okay, this is we call it chlorinations. This is an effective way to purify your water. You put the water purification tablets in your water, and these tablets can kill all the germs, parasites, viruses, bacteria in the water. So this is the fastest ways to get a clean water. But then you cannot remove the big like particles or dust in the water, but it helps to remove all the bacteria, so you can drink the water. But then it won't remove the big particles. Yep. And then so in the method 2, we go back to method 2. So in this method, just now we mentioned, right, we put the dirty water and it go through the rocks. And activated carbons, and then you get the water, right? But this water is actually full of bacteria and viruses. So actually there are 2 methods to do before you drink this water. So you can either boil the water to get rid of the bacteria, or you can put the chlorine. So after you filter the water in this filter, and then you can put the chlorine tablets, and then it can kill the bacteria and viruses. So either you boil it or you put the tablets, okay?
大家可以看第2种方法，我们之前讲过的是过滤，但是它是
Okay, so this is an example of water purification plants. Okay, the first one is a raw water reservoir. So raw water reservoir is collect the dirty water from our house, from the plant. So you got all the dirty water over here. So when you have the dirty water over here, so all the heavy stuff, it will accumulate and sinks under the sink. Then after that, you have a pump stations. You pump the water at the top and go to the next tank. In these tanks, you have a stirrer, big stirrer. When you stir it rigorously, all the dirties and particles and whatever muds it have, it will mix together, it accumulates, become a big lumps. And then this big lump will become really, really heavy, and then it will sink at the bottoms. So the next step is storage. Then after that, in the next steps, you have so you see, as aggregates of flocks settle out, okay, so the heavy stuff, it will sink at the bottoms. So then you flush out and you pump the clean water into the next tank. So after this, you filter your water. This water undergoes some chlorinations or UV ozone treatments to kill all the viruses before it sends the clean water to your house or to the factory. So the first step is collect the raw water, pump the raw water into the next tank, stir it rigorously so that all the dirty stuff or the chemicals, they mix together, and then they will become really, really heavy, and then they will sink at the bottoms. After that, you put the waters into the next clean tanks. Okay, once you get this water, you do some chlorination, as we mentioned just now. You put the chlorine tablets, you do the UV ozones, because it can kill all the bacteria and virus. And then after that, you either store it or you send it to the consumers. Okay?
这是一个
So this is the example of the pollutions that we have, or pollutions or problems we have right now. So the first one is examples of like oceans, rivers is full of rubbish, plastic bags, and plastic bottles, and that is a very dirty rivers. So in a lot of developing country, for example, like maybe Africa or India, they actually has limited clean water supply, because this developing country, they don't have money to have a very good water filter system to supply the clean water for the people. So this is a big problem for the developing country. They don't have clean water because they don't have the money to build very advanced water filter. And the second problems we are having right now is the droughts and the changing water, which affects the water supplies. So this is an example of a lake or a pond. It used to have a lake or pond in this area, but because of the droughts, the changing weathers, all the water dries out. And if this water dries out, and that means there is no fresh water supplies for the living inhabitants in this area. For example, if you are living in these areas, you don't have the water supply, so it will be really hard for you to live in these kind of areas. So this is also affecting the living life, not only for humans, it's also for the animals and the plants. And the third problems we are having right now is the pollutions caused by either natural or human factors. For example, we build a lot of factories, and then these kind of factories, it produce high-end products for us. But on the other hand, they also produce a lot of toxics or contaminants to the surroundings. For example, these factories, this maybe is an example of chemical factories. They produce some chemicals, but at the same time, they produce chemical for the human consumptions, not human consumptions, for us to use. But then they also produce some toxic, very, very toxic contaminants to the environment. For example, they might flush out the contaminants or unwanted chemicals to the rivers, and then because of these contaminants that go into the water, it will affect the living life in this river, or it will affect and then makes the water in the river very dirty and cannot be consumed by the humans. Or we have to spend a lot of money to filter the water before we can drink it. So these are the example of the problems which we are having right now. Okay, so this is the last slide. So what we can do to conserve the water, like as a human being and as citizens of these planets, we can actually do something very little, but then we can help to conserve the water for our planets. So for example, what we can do is we can try to reduce the shower times. Maybe in the past we used to take a shower for like maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and then we shower in the bathtubs when put a lot of water. So this time, try to think like, how about I reduce the time? I reduce it to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, and then instead of using the bathtub and fill up with a lot of water, why not I just shower it with a shower head? So I don't fill up the water, I don't use a lot of water. And then the second one is try to repair the leaky tap. So if you found any leaky taps in your house or in your apartments, try to inform your parents as soon as possible so that they can get the plumber to repair for you. So this is also another method. And then lastly, some people, they like to leave the faucet running, so they like to leave the water tap running while they are like brushing their teeth. They just leave it running. So this is not good because you waste the clean water, which a lot of people in the other worlds, for example the Africas or the India, they don't have the fresh water. But because we have the fresh water, we just leave it running because we think it's not very costly for us. But this is not a good way to conserve the water. So try not to leave your water tap running. Yep. So these are the examples of how to conserve the water.
作为我们同学